Jeffrey Epstein didn't hide. Money hid him. What the DOJ's $3+ million document release exposes about incentives, institutions, and why accountability slows down for the wealthy people keep treating Jeffrey Epstein like the point of the story. He isn't. He's the case study, a stress test that shows what happens when someone has enough money, status, and legal firepower to turn consequences into paperwork. And now, because the US Department of Justice has released over 3 million additional pages under the Epstein Files Transparency Act, we're seeing the size of the machine that surrounded the case. Investigations, records, communications, and decades of institutional friction. This isn't about juicy secrets. It's about something more uncomfortable. Money doesn't just buy comfort. It buys delay. It buys doubt. It buys distance from consequences. 1. Money didn't make him invisible. It made pursuit expensive. Here's the first rule of power. The richer you are, the more costly it is to hold you accountable. Accountability has a cost at every step. Investigations require time and budgets. Prosecutors have limited bandwidth. Trials are long, complex, and risky. Civil exposure and reputational blowback hit institutions too. When a target has resources, the system quietly shifts from, "Is this true?" to "Is this worth it?" That's not a conspiracy. That's incentives. And incentives don't need evil people to work. They just need limited budgets, risk-averse decision makers, legal complexity, reputational liability. Money turns a clean moral issue into a messy operational one, and mess is where consequences go to die. 2. Silence isn't mysterious. It's financially rational. Most people want to believe silence means collusion. Often it's simpler. Silence is the lowest risk option. For someone on the edge of a powerful network, staff, associates, service providers, peripheral witnesses, the math looks like this. Speak up. Legal risk, career risk, reputation risk. Stay quiet. Usually nothing happens. That's why silence scales. Not because everyone is in on it, but because the downside isn't shared equally. If you want fewer cover-ups in the world, stop hunting villains and start fixing this equation. Make telling the truth cheaper than staying quiet. 3. Institutions don't protect monsters. They protect themselves. This is where people get emotional, so let's stay clinical. Institutions primarily optimize for legal exposure, reputational damage, operational disruption, budget, and workload. When an institution faces a choice between doing the hard thing, costly, risky, public, and doing the safe thing, slow, quiet, procedural, it will usually pick safe. That's how you get endless process. Jurisdictional ping-pong not enough to proceed, decisions, settlements, and NDAs in the civil world, delays that grind attention into dust. The system doesn't need to hide someone. It just needs to slow walk reality until the public moves on. The DOJ press release says it published 3.5 million responsive pages in compliance with the Act. It also has a dedicated DOJ Epstein library portal with warnings about sensitive material and redactions. And then comes the part that perfectly matches the theme of this video. Even in a transparency release, systems still default to risk management. News reports say the DOJ temporarily removed thousands of files to address concerns about victim identifying information and additional redactions. That's not a gotcha. That's the point. Even when transparency is legally required, the system's instinct is protect privacy, good, reduce liability, inevitable, control access, predictable. So the public gets redactions and moving targets, while lawmakers are told they can view unredacted files under strict conditions. This is what money hid him looks like in real life. Not secrecy, friction. Not a locked vault, an endless hallway of procedures. 5. Names in documents is not the same thing as guilt. Stop falling for that trap. When large document dumps happen, the internet does what it always does. It grabs names, makes thumbnails, and monetizes implication. Even reputable reporting has emphasized that a person's name appearing in the material does not necessarily imply wrongdoing. A serious channel doesn't do guilt by association. That's lazy, risky, and usually wrong. If you want a real takeaway, it's this. You don't fix a system by turning it into a witch hunt. You fix it by changing incentives and reducing friction for accountability. 6. The real lesson. Accountability is a pricing problem. Here's the sharpest version of the thesis. In many high-status cases, justice doesn't disappear, it gets priced out. Money prices out, persistence, attention, legal stamina, institutional courage, and time finishes the job. That's why Epstein matters. Not because he's unique, but because the case shows how the world works when power concentrates consequences, become optional institutions, manage risk instead of enforcing truth. Aussie Money Rules takeaway. If you want fewer Epsteins, not just this Epstein, you don't start with outrage. You start with incentives. Protect whistleblowers better, faster, cheaper. Reduce procedural stalling tactics. Make delay less effective. Make institutional inaction more costly than action. Because the next version of this story won't announce itself. It'll just hide behind friction again. Follow Aussie Money Rules for clear thinking about money, power, and how the system actually works.